So now onto our program. This is what you guys are here for. If you had to describe what the Chamber does in 2 words, I would say it's connections and advocacy. And that's why this program is so poignant today. In February of 2020, our board voted to let the Political Action Committee, the PAC, have this program this time last year. And that was going to put the Chamber in a position of taking a stance on the bond, which we did and passed a resolution supporting the bond, which showed our advocacy efforts. So when we were putting together this luncheon schedule in November of last year, we saved a spot for April for BISD, knowing that there was the potential of a school bond being called, or should I say recalled, rescheduled, for this May of 2021. The PAC is made up of your fellow Chamber members, citizens, neighbors, and friends. We intentionally scheduled this program today, and I prayed that we would be meeting in person, and we are. So, I'm gonna turn this over to Evan. Sorry, I said, don't cry, don't cry. Anyways, Evan was a fellow member of the Citizens Advisory Task Force, and he's helping lead the efforts of the PAC. So I'm going to turn it over to Evan and let him share our program today.
Good afternoon. It was a year ago when we got to address you the last time. And I started with a story about perspective. I left here and I went to Chicago where I got stranded due to early flights being canceled with COVID. But when I was in Chicago, I was gathered with a group, and the speaker before me told a story. He went to the podium and he put 4 jars. And in the first jar, he put an earthworm with cigarette smoke. And in the second jar, he put an earthworm in alcohol. And in the third jar, he put an earthworm in chocolate syrup. And in the fourth jar, he put an earthworm in good, clean soil. And he said, look and see what we can learn. And as the speech went on at the end, he came back and he said, look at the worm in cigarette smoke is dead. The worm in alcohol is dead. The worm in chocolate syrup is dead, but the worm in good, clean soil is alive and well. What can we learn? And the woman next to me rose her hand, and she stood up and she said, as long as I drink and smoke and eat chocolate, I'll never have worms. We started about perspective. You know, last year I said the direction from which we come, the direction to which we go shapes that which we see. And we talked about the ginormous perspective shift that was happening in Bastrop in that time and what a difference a year can make, right? Who knew when we left that room how all of our perspectives would change like there was no tomorrow? Who knew that this would be the first time I put on pants in a year? Who knew that a year ago I could button my own pants? And thank you to the gentleman in the restroom a moment ago. Perspective has shifted dramatically, but the need has not. In fact, it's only grown. On behalf of the Support Our BISD Kids PAC, we formed and provided information to try to share this story with you. You know that it's been 14 years since we passed our last bond in BISD. In that time, nearly 3,000 additional students have joined our student body. But more than that, in that same time, the growth has just compounded. In fact, last year when we stood here, we talked about the potential of Tesla, right, and the potential of 5,000 new employees. Well, if you watch the news this week, it's more than Tesla, and it's now 15,000 new employees, and they're already here in our community. Try to buy a home in our community right now. We're anticipating an additional 3,100 students in the next 5 years in Bastrop. 7,300 students in 10 years. It is no longer an option in our community. We have to have a place to put these students when they arrive. 7 of our 14 schools are overpopulation right now, and before these newest numbers came out, we expected 10 to be overpopulation in the next 2 years. We're not going to make 2 years, folks. We've got to do this today. Beyond that, safety is a critical factor. The realities of today are so much different than the realities that you and I faced when we sat in our schools. Open campus designs are no longer safe for our children. And we have a responsibility not only to our children and to our teachers, but also to our law enforcement to provide environments that allow them to protect our kids in the way that need to be there. This bond will significantly change access to our campuses in a way that improves the safety of our kids. And as perspective has changed, we learned pretty quickly how important technology is last March. And so we have renovated the bond that is coming to include technology infrastructure to ensure that Bastrop remains a destination district of excellence in that front as well. So how were we created? If you were here last year, you learned about the Citizens Advisory Task Force. 59 citizens from across this community gathered together over several months to learn everything that we need to learn. The district is complex. 11,000 students, or more than 11,000 students, and employees and campuses and things that are needed. So we went through months and months of learning. We brought in outside consultants to talk about tax bond rates and to talk about construction costs and to make projections. If you were a part of that Citizens Advisory Task Force, would you stand so people in the room can see you and know that you're a resource? Please stand. Thank you. These folks gathered together multiple nights to provide the bond that was passed or put before you for vote last year, and then were regathered this fall to renovate this bond package to ensure it met today's needs. They're resources for you. If you saw them stand and you have questions for them, please ask them here in the room to get your questions answered. Our goal was super majority. That was the minimum standard in that room of 59 people. You ever try to get 59 people to agree on something? It's a difficult prospect, but we ended up with unanimous consent that this is the right thing for Bastrop and what we're putting forward. We're hearing this question: is it tax neutral and how? So here's your quick primer on taxes in case you didn't have a chance for a nap today. Schools are funded in two ways, right? They get two pots of funding from the taxes that we create. The first is maintenance and operation. This is all the day-to-day activities, the teacher salaries, the things that go on every day in our school, insurance, equipment, other day-to-day operations. And then they get their debt service pot of money, which they can only spend to pay off school bonds, to do renovations, to buy buses or portable buildings, land, technology, and the costs of having a bond. They get that money regardless of whether or not there's anything to spend it on, and they can only spend it when we give them approval as a community, right? So what's happened over the last couple of years is that they've been good stewards of that money. We haven't passed a bond in 14 years, so think of it this way. You get $2,000 a month that you can only spend on your mortgage, and your mortgage is $1,000 a month. What do you do with that extra $1,000? You're not allowed to spend it on anything else. You pay down your mortgage, right? Well, after you pay down your mortgage so much, now you refinance, and now your note is only $500 a month. Oh, and by the way, now I'm going to give you $3,000 a month to pay that note. That's how this bond is tax neutral. That's why there's no tax rate increase in this, because the dollars that are available more than cover the expense of having debt service right now, because the school district has done a good job in paying off debt early, and because of the astounding growth that we've experienced in our community. This is essentially just required public permission to spend dollars that are already allocated. And that's really critical for all of us to understand. In fact, what happened there, Chris? Oh, there we go. I hit the wrong button. In fact, the district has reduced the tax rate by 24% in those same 15 years, from $1.73 to $1.32 today. So not only did they reduce the tax rate, they paid off the bonds early, and we've left overage for this growth that we need today. Our goal as a Citizens Advisory Task Force was to be tax neutral, to have a no tax rate impact on the rate that you're charged as citizens of Bastrop in this bond. You'll see two propositions on the bond. Why are there two propositions? The reason is on September 19th, of 2019, the Texas legislature passed a new law that requires any bond proposition, essentially, that deals with a facility that seats more than 1,000 people to be in its own bond proposition. We have no choice. So one of these bonds deals with some renovations to Earhart Field. And because of that, it sits in its own bond proposition. Together, the two propositions, A and B, together are tax neutral. I also want you to know this, and I need your help getting this information out to the community. The legislature also passed a law that on the ballot itself, when you go to vote on these propositions, on both Prop A and Prop B, you will see that statement, this is a property tax increase, even when there is no property tax rate implication. That is state law. There's nothing we can do about it. If you have questions, I encourage you to talk to your state reps about why they did that and what it's doing to our schools. So what's included in the bond? Our mantra was every student, every school. With 14 years gone by, all of those great plans that were laid by previous leaders where things were built in intentional stages, all those stages are gone now. We're too far past what is needed. We're often asked, why does Cedar Creek, the new high school, need renovations? Well, remember, Cedar Creek is not new anymore. It's 12 years old, and it was intentionally built to be built in stages, and now it's overpopulation because we never approved the next stage. So every student, every school comes into this. Here's what you see. In big picture, we have a lot of growth. You saw it in the video that the school district provided. 2 new elementary campuses, growth through renovation. Each of our middle schools, or our intermediary schools, becomes a middle school. We'll have 4 middle schools in the community with a more traditional growth pattern. You know, pre-K to 5 in our elementary, 6 to 8 in our middles, and then our high schools 9 to 12. Safety and security for our campuses, as I mentioned, and then also the general improvements to infrastructure and parking and all of those kinds of things. And if you dropped your kids off today at school in this community, you know how desperately we need a little infrastructure around our parking at our campuses. Then we have Proposition B. Proposition B encounters Earhart Field. Because only by state law it has to be in its own proposition, we're talking about renovations to the field, to just the turf, not to the stands or any of that, but to the locker rooms, to the painting and the facilities that are there. And this is not optional. Because it's in its second bond, it feels a little bit like it's an add-on. It's not, folks. I invite you to go harass Dr. Lee, to go harass Superintendent Edwards, and ask them for a tour. Go walk through those facilities. Maybe bring some safety glasses and some gloves and a little bit of disinfectant. We have 3 girls sharing 1 locker from 3 different sports in that facility right now. We have a washing machine that requires a wooden pole to turn it on, right? These facilities are far, far behind, and there's no fairness or parity across our district. Because Earhart was slated later, it is far behind what we're seeing at our other campus, and we need to bring that up to field. Aside from that, Earhart is not only used by Bastrop High School, and not only used by football. It's used by soccer and by track, and our band can have practice fields on there, and our middle schools will need a place to play, and our BYFO plays there, and our youth soccer has events there, and we can have graduations and other things there. This field is a community engagement piece for the high school. And just look at our neighbors, not our fancy neighbors. Go over to Smithville and see what they were able to do when they can put all of this on a campus and how wonderful it feels to walk around a campus and engage your kids in sports while you're on campus at their high school. You will see we are trying to be as transparent as possible in this. And so if you go to this website there, BISDtexas.org, page 8185, you will see a separate flyer for every single campus. If you want to know what's impacting your kids and your campus, you will see a flyer that tells you exactly what's happening there. You'll also see signs on every single school campus that tells you exactly what's happening, and the summary flyers that are on your table today are there for you. We are also sharing that information through our social media, Support Our BISD Kids, on Facebook and Instagram, and you'll see that across. Early voting comes up soon, April 19th through the 27th. As you saw in the video, you can vote on any campus in the school district. In order to do that, you can arrive during the day and make your vote in those early voting places. On Election Day, May 1st, you do have to be at your polling place for Election Day voting this year. We're working hard. The Support Our BISD PAC, some of those members are here today. Greg Miller, Sheila Lowe, Zia is here with us, and if I'm missing others in the room that may have arrived late, all of us are working hard. We're thankful for the support of so many businesses in this community. Hunt Properties in the Colony has been remarkably supportive of us. Thank you so much for that. We've had support from the Chamber and from RE/MAX in those places. We have yard signs for you. If you need them today, you can take them here. We also have business window clings. And I would love to have every business in our community have a visible sign of support for our kids and to have those window clings in your windows. They're right up here for you. You can take them today when you go. It'll save me from harassing and knocking on your door here in the coming days to make that happen. We also have some stickers available. Let us know if you have old signs from last year. We're being good stewards as well. We can recover those for you. Our social media is there. I want you to know we're putting our full force behind this with the support of several businesses in the community and many of you personally. We have direct mail efforts going on that you may see. You may have also received phone calls in the community as we try to ascertain what the right messages are for everybody because, folks, we're the center circle. You gathered for a meeting of your community on a midday week. You are the center of Bastrop as business leaders. There are concentric circles around us that go out that haven't heard this message yet. So don't take it for granted that we all agree about this, and don't take it for granted that everybody fully understands it. Help us inform everybody in this community by getting that word out and getting folks out to vote during those days. We have a couple upcoming events I want you to be aware of. The first is if you know people in the community have questions or concerns, we're going to have an event at the Colony at 3 p.m. in their community center on Sunday afternoon. We're also going to have one right in downtown at the outside space at Base Camp Deli on Tuesday the 13th outside, so you can feel comfortable there if you're in that space. And the Chamber has just offered as well to have a Q&A session for us on the morning of the 19th, and details will be coming out about that so that if you have specific questions or members of your community have specific questions, we can answer those for you. The biggest barrier for us is misunderstanding. This is a huge, complex system. It is not like what we manage in our households. We like to equate it to that, but it's not. It's a huge, complex system. And misunderstanding of these things and how they work and distrust in the system is our biggest barrier. So we need you as leaders to help us get people out to vote, to help us get people to information so they can make the decisions that they want to make in this community. We're doing everything we can to get as much information out as possible. If you'd like to offer your public support, one of the things that we have going on social media right now is key leaders like yourself offering us a photo and a quote of support. You can put your phone up to that right now. Remember QR codes? Talk about perspective change. They almost died, and then all of a sudden we needed them for food, and they came back. So you can go onto that QR code right now, and you can grab a website where you can upload a photo and give us your testimonial for why you're supporting this in the community. Zia and the team working on social media behind the scenes will get that up for you. These are also on the table over here when you come up. We also, if you'd like to get a sign or volunteer, if you don't want to take one today, we'll deliver them to you. If you'd like to volunteer to help us in this community as we get the effort out, you can do that here. And we have one more for you, which is to donate. All of the work that we're doing to get the messaging out does take funds, and while we've had several generous businesses lead the way here, we are still in needs of those. And if you'd like to make a gift, you can make those online. Gifts of any size ensure that we get the ability to do the marketing that's needed to get this out there for you. We encourage you to vote yes on Prop A and B. And as I've shared many times, none of us got to where we are by ourselves. There's a myth of the bootstraps. And there are stories of people that truly did it on their own, but most of us had help somewhere along the way. Our parents, our grandparents, our community members, people who had no kids, they stepped up to build the schools in this community They stepped up to build the schools in the communities we grew up in. And we have an opportunity now to impact generations of kids who are coming into Bastrop, and I hope that you'll join my family and the families of those supporting in the Citizens Advisory Task Force and in the PAC to ensure the future for the kids of BISD. If not, one more time, if you participate in the CATF or the PAC, please raise your hand in the room. These are your folks. Don't be shy. Ask them your questions today. Come up and engage us at the table here. We're happy to answer your questions. We want to make sure everybody gets the information that they need. Thank you so much.
We'll stay just a second here. And I want you to know that we passed a resolution from the chamber last year at this time, and we also passed another one in February, and we presented it in March to the school board in support of the bond. And so I would like to present Evan with another copy of that resolution to show our support from the chamber. So I know in a setting like this, asking questions might be intimidating because you're thinking, oh, well, you know, that might be a dumb question. No question is a dumb question. Evan alluded to it, but on April 19th at 8:15, we are having a Q&A via a Zoom call where you can get on that with a smaller group and ask very specific questions. So we're encouraging you to either get on our website, call the chamber, or whatever. We'll get you signed up and send you that link. But we want your questions answered. So if you have any questions, we encourage you to sign up for that on Monday, April 19th at 8:15.